Welcome to the download. I'm Reid Mercer, and this week the money's moving fast enough that the press releases can't keep up. Start with advertising. Magellan AI's Q2 numbers just landed, and the ad load hit a record right alongside it. iHeart's posting a revenue surge that CEO Bob Pittman is framing as podcast growth. I want to know if it's actually a video story wearing a podcast costume. Then there's measurement. YouTube quietly changed what counts as a view. Every network's numbers just got bigger overnight, and nobody asked what that actually means for buyers writing checks against those figures. And Spotify just moved the Ringer's Wise Guys onto Twitch. Interesting move for a company that spent years chasing exclusivity. Also, we'll get into the NFL's denial that its revived Move the Sticks feed was AI generated, and what that says about disclosure across this whole industry, next to the brand safety exposure nobody's pricing in yet. Follow the money, because that's usually where the real story is hiding. Let's start with the ad numbers, because that record ad load didn't happen by accident. We want to hear from you. Submit questions via the web form in the description or give us a call at 747-234-2678 and leave it a question. Don't be shy. Our AI assistant makes it super easy. %. That's the year-over-year jump in podcast ad spend for Q2, according to Magellan AI data reported by both Inside Radio and Radio Inc. Brand dollars led that surge. Brand awareness spending alone jumped 16%, and insurance is suddenly the fastest-growing ad category in the medium. Now, here's what the press release didn't say. Ad load hit a record high in the same quarter. Same report, buried further down. So which is it? Are more advertisers actually showing up, or are publishers just cramming more inventory into the same episodes and calling it growth? Follow the money before you follow the headline. 9% sequential growth from Q1 to Q2 is real. 23% year-over-year sounds better than it should if a chunk of that is added volume rather than actual pricing power. I've seen this movie before. Radio did the same thing in the 90s. Load up the inventory, watch the CPMs erode, then wonder why listeners started churning. Meanwhile, iHeart Media's podcast revenue jumped 21% in Q2, with another 20% gain forecast for Q3, per Inside Radio. CEO Bob Pittman is framing that as pure podcast momentum, except the growth engine he's actually describing is video. iHeart is expanding into video podcasting hard, and that changes two things at once. The margin profile, because video production costs more than an RSS feed, and the comp set. You're no longer just benchmarking against Wondery, you're benchmarking against YouTube creators with in-house edit bays. On the measurement side, the buy side is finally getting what it's asked for a decade. Basis integrated Barometer this week for episode-level brand suitability targeting, according to MarTech Cube. Cineverse launched something called Vaudio, repackaging radio and podcast ad reads into CTV-ready video assets per Radio World. Put those two together, and you get granular, addressable audio buys that price like television. That kind of precision is what's pulling brand dollars towards video podcast budgets specifically. So what should you actually ask your team Monday morning? Ask what share of that CPM growth is price and what share is volume. If your ad load climbed 15% while rates only moved 8%, you got more inventory per hour. You didn't get pricing power. One tension nobody in these numbers wants to sit with is that targeting gets this precise and video repackaging gets this easy. The players writing the biggest checks aren't just ad networks anymore. They're streamers. So who's actually buying the premium inventory now, and what happens to your rate card when Disney's the one bidding against you for it?
Building on that money trail, the plumbing underneath it just got rewired and nobody sent a memo. YouTube changed how it counts a view. Pod News reported it today, and the shift is quiet, but it moves the denominator every network reports against. A view used to mean an actual watch. Loosen that definition, and Pod News' own read is simple. the raw numbers go up across the board, which means every sales deck built on YouTube view counts just got a bump nobody earned. I've spent 2 decades chasing this exact problem, downloads dressed up as engaged listeners. Now it's happening one level up on the platform's own scoreboard. If your Q3 media kit shows a view spike, ask your team one question Monday morning. Is that audience growth or is that YouTube's math? Now flip that on its head. Spotify just put Ringer's Wise Guys onto Twitch. TubeFilter and Mashable both covered the move this week. On paper, that reads like expansion. Read it as a landlord problem instead. Twitch has the live video audience and chat culture Spotify's video push never built on its own. So Spotify's renting distribution it can't grow organically. That's an admission. Spotify's video traction inside its own app isn't strong enough to hold Wise Guys without borrowed foot traffic from somebody else's platform. 2 platforms, 2 moves, same underlying story. The companies that own measurement and distribution get to set the terms everyone else gets billed against. And once a platform controls the definition, it controls disclosure too, what gets reported and what conveniently doesn't. Which is the fight waiting next. The NFL insists its Move the Sticks feed wasn't AI generated, wasn't AI hosted. Whether anyone believes that is a different question entirely.
Shifting to risk, the NFL's got a real problem here. Move the Sticks came back with a new voice, no credited host, and the internet decided it was AI before the league said a word. NBC Sports reported the denial straight from the league. Mike Florio wrote that the NFL says the show wasn't AI-generated or AI-hosted. Front Office Sports ran the same denial days later. But here's what actually matters. It doesn't matter if the denial's true. The accusation stuck because nobody disclosed anything up front. Silence reads as guilt now. And that risk cuts both ways. Suspicion of a synthetic voice is one kind of brand exposure. A live human voice saying something horrific is another, and worse. ITV reported Israeli minister Itamar Ben-Gvir went on a podcast and called for killing 30 to 40 people in Gaza nightly. The Sun papers ran the same account. Think about whoever booked that feed programmatically. Nobody vetted the guest. Nobody flagged the episode before it went live. That's the actual liability. Not the synthetic voice, the unvetted human one. So what goes in the contract before your advertiser asks? 3 things. 1. Disclosure language. If synthetic voice or AI editing touches a show, it's labeled in the feed itself, not buried in show notes. 2. Episode-level review triggers on unscripted or news-adjacent shows. Human sign-off before publish, not just a keyword scan after the fact. 3. A kill switch clause. If a network can pull an episode off every platform within the hour, that's a selling point to buyers, not paperwork. Episode-level targeting tools get you precision. None of it helps if the episode itself is the liability.
That's the show. Quick gut check before you go. The line that should stick. YouTube quietly changed what counts as a view, and it inflates every deck built on those numbers. So if your Q3 media kit shows a spike, ask your team Monday, is that real growth or is that YouTube's math? And the NFL's insisting Move the Sticks wasn't AI voiced. Fine, but the brand safety exposure this week was a politician's own words on someone else's feed. Contracts should cover both. Forward this to the colleague who still trusts a screenshot. Tips, feedback, gripes, the download at heymato.com. Thanks for spending the time with me. Back next week with more of what the press release buried.